action button. I've got that. Oh, right.
Now, what's that program?
Yeah, no good. You need a glass of wine that we're going to, though. Yeah. Okay, let's kick on, everyone. So we're on item 19 on page 77, and welcome to HBRIC, Dr. Pearce, Mr. Newman. I was going to say Mr. Ledger, but I won't. General Ledger, there you go. Okay. So welcome, gentlemen, and I'll hand over to you. So we have this. We have a first piece here, which we'd like to discuss.
Thanks, Chairman. Good afternoon, councillors. Not all that much to say about the short paper that's item 19, but just one update for you. As councillors are aware, we applied the week before now, for urgency for the hearing of the appeals. And that urgency application was approved last Friday, and the dates for the hearings are now set for the 10th, 11th and 12th of November in Wellington. We are ready for the due diligence process, and we do have copies of the non-disclosure agreement here to give to councillors. So we're ready to commence that process once those have been signed. And as the paper says, in the public excluded session, we have a detailed budget reforecast to discuss with councillors. But I'm happy to take questions for Andrew. In your hands, Jim.
Thank you. Okay, so any questions on those first pieces there? Okay. Councillor Barker.
Due diligence process, do you have some dates or specifics around this? When do you expect to?
The forms are here, as I said. We'll hand them out to you today.
So when can we go and have a look at the room itself?
Is the room available?
Monday.
Microphone.
It'll be available from Monday.
Monday?
Yep.
All right, just want to get all the...
Yes, it's the room just in the foyer on the right-hand side when you come in.
Excuse me, thank you. Okay, any other questions on this? Councillor Graham.
Yes, thanks. Can we get an update, a progress report on the conditions precedent? I mean, where are we at on, just in terms of percentages and achieved for water uptake, where are we at on financial investor, and what was the other one?
So there
Construction. Oh, construction, no, that's fine. That's
So there are
just
four.
those two, really.
So happy to speak to you in more detail on the uptake matter when we're in the public excluded session. Andrew has some information that we're happy to talk about then. On the construction contract, we're close. We believe that we're largely there in terms of the construction contract. On financial investors, we have substantial interest from a number of parties. Obviously, I'm not in a position to disclose who they might be, but we, as I've said to you on a number of occasions, we believe that getting the uptake issue sorted is the first order of business. We won't make that much progress with the equity investors until they and we are reasonably sure that we're over the line on the uptake condition precedent, but we don't have any concern about the scale or nature of the potential investors that we're talking about and with.
I'll just add a wee bit, going back to construction, in terms of our fixed time, fixed price negotiation with the constructors. We had a meeting last week with them, and they're happy to roll the basic terms and conditions through, basically. So obviously we've got a time lag, and the good news there is that the constructors alongside us is really the terms and and conditions of the offer are largely intact and being rolled on, basically. There'll be a wee bit of price negotiation around inflator issues and so forth, but otherwise it's materially in pretty strong position actually, which is a little bit different than I would have said 6 months ago. Yep.
So a follow-up. So I'm happy with the construction and I'm happy with the investor situation because, of course, I clearly understand that. You will be aware that I'm not personally happy that the financial close date changed whilst I was in China. I don't know whether it was discussed with other people, but wasn't discussed with me. I understand why it would be, but I would have thought as a councillor, another process would have taken place where we would have said, hey, this is what's happened, do you agree with this? Instead I was just told, and I didn't like that. The other thing is, I would have thought that, and I hear mates of mine who are keen to sign up, I would have thought that having a running tail and say, look, we're 10% of the way there, we're 20% of the way there, would be something that the public's interested in. I would have thought that the region of Central Hawke's Bay would have been really interested in that other farmers would be interested in that. I don't see why that wouldn't be a public figure. How well are we doing? We've moved a date, that's fine, I understand all those issues, but how are we going? Why can't we share that with the public?
I think at some point I think we will be, but as you'll discover when we talk about this in the public excluded, there are a number of matters that still need to be traversed, and we don't think we're in a position where it would be sensible to do that yet. At some point it will be.
Thank you. Other questions? So if you go to page 77, we obviously need to receive this report so it can be accepted into our public minutes. So you happy to move that, Councillor Scott? We have a seconder for item 19. Thank you, Councillor Dick. Discussion? Councillor Graham.
I will be voting not to receive this report. The reason I will be voting that way is I don't think it's adequate. I think I accept the Chairman's view on this. I don't agree with his view on this. I think that the public have a right to know. They've invested a substantial amount of money in this already. We all know that the last $2 million was up to the 30th of June. When we did that, we didn't actually have a budget going forward, but now we do. And everyone would assume that we would require more capital, and the public have a right to know more about this business venture when this substantial amount of capital is going in. So I'll be voting against accepting this report, which I think is inadequate.
Sum up.
Chairman, we look forward to the ability to practice due diligence on our own behalf. I hope that the room is well used.
Thank you. I'll put that motion and all those in favour please say aye. Aye. Against? Pardon me?
Yeah, against.
Yeah. You're against. Okay. It is accepted. Right. So we have item 20, 21 and 22 where, for reasons as listed, we are looking to move into public excluded. Someone could move and second these as one, but I think I'll take the vote separately if that's acceptable. Or
I prefer them taken separately.
separate items, moved and second separately. Okay, so someone happy to move item 20? Councillor Hewitt, we have a seconder for that. Councillor Scott, I'll put that motion. All those in favour?
Excuse me, can we ask questions, which is a normal discussion?
More discussion. Well, you can have discussion, yeah, okay.
I think normally we have a practice of questions and then discussion. I think there's an opportunity here for a number of questions.
Has not normally been that way when we're talking about going into public excluded. I mean, it's normally you either agree with it or you don't.
Well, I think there's some questions I'd like answered to make a decision.
Questions of whom? Chief Executive?
Of you, the representatives of HBRIC. My fundamental problem with this issue is this.
Well, okay. Well, I don't need to hear your problem. I'd like to hear your question.
Yeah, the
For
question
now,
is
we can have the problem and debate
Yeah,
after
well,
we move.
I would like to know what is it in the information that's been provided to us which justifies excluding the public. Just to say I've read through it and I
Okay,
do
no,
not
that's
believe
fine.
that's to be the case.
So I'll actually ask the chairman of HBRIC to elaborate on that.
Well, the first point I'd want to make, Chairman, is that I believe you have a procedural motion in front of you, and I think your standing orders probably say that you can only debate the procedure and not the substance. So I am deeply reluctant to get into the substance of this paper and answer question by question. However, before your trigger finger is too happy, sir,
I've been restrained.
there is at least one matter in here which I will use as an example. It is not the only matter, and that is the size and the nature of the fee for one of the commercial advisors to HBRIC, and that is a matter that is is confidential and shall remain so, and I will not answer questions about it in public.
Thank you. You've had your question. Councillor Bevan, you had a question?
Well, if we're now discussing the motion which is on the table,
We can unless you have a specific question. I think the bulk of the issue that has been raised here has been answered, and we are not going to go through a trial by questions
No,
here
but
because of the procedural nature of what's in front of us. But I have allowed Councillor Barker to ask his question. I'll allow you to ask another question.
well,
if you have one.
it's more a discussion on the motion that's in front of us that I want to speak to. I don't.
Okay. Let's move into debate. I think that's probably the way to deal with it.
I have one more question. My question is to Dr. Pearce. If that information that is alluded to was excised from this paper, is there anything else in here which would require public excluded? Because I accept the point that he makes about that. There might be some sensitivity, but I don't believe that there's anything else which justifies public excluded.
There was quite a discussion, my understanding, before the papers were set out, so perhaps the Chief Executive
Look,
could answer.
could I perhaps answer this, because it's my name at the bottom of the paper. The question of what should be in public excluded and what should be available in public for this paper took quite a while to resolve. Some of it was quite clear cut, it should be in open. Some of it was quite clear cut, it should be in public excluded. In terms of you know, your broader question around whether or not there are some parts that could be or should be in the public domain, I guess the template that was applied to what should be in public and what should be in public excluded was really around the information that supported the critical stuff that should be in public excluded. So where it actually supported a particular key point, it was presumed to go into public excluded rather than into public. Having said that, we're always acutely aware of the huge public interest in this whole area, and don't for 1 minute envisage that all of the information, and should you decide to pass the recommendations in here, that all of that will remain in public excluded. There will be an opportunity for the broader outcomes potentially to be made public sooner rather than later. I'm not going to put a date on it, but they would be out in the public domain, and there will be some that will forever be fundamentally probably commercially sensitive, but the bulk of it would certainly be something that could be made available to the public once the decision is made.
Did you have a question, Councillor?
Yes, I have a question of the Chief Executive and Dr. Pearce. Are the two reasons for passing this resolution in terms of the statute both valid and true?
They are, yes.
They are. Okay. Well, let's get to the debate.
Thank you.
No more questions. Let's get to the debate. You wish to speak? Did you move? No, sorry, Debbie moved. Excuse me. Do you wish to speak?
Thank you. As an elected representative of this council, I look forward to hearing a briefing from our HBRIC directors, and so I'll reserve my right at the end of this discussion to speak further, but in the interim I think that it's important and timely that we hear in the first instance. Thank you.
Councillor Scott, you withhold your right. Any other speakers? Councillor Bevan.
Thank you.
And then
Chair.
Councillor Belford.
Yeah, I start with the words from the statute, and I'll just read them. And I'll read the second part first. That the public conduct of this agenda item would be likely to result in the disclosure of information where the withholding of the information is necessary to enable the local authority holding the information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage negotiations, including commercial and industrial negotiations. Well, that can't apply because that applies to the local authority, and this information is not local authority's information, it's HBRIC's. So I'll rule out the second one. Let's now deal with the first one, which says disclosure of information where the withholding of that information is necessary to protect information which otherwise would likely unreasonably to prejudice the commercial position of the person, which is HBRIC, who supplied or who is the subject of the information. So that's the test that we have to apply as to whether we can justify going into public excluded or not. And when I consider that, and I read the paper, and I've read the paper twice, for the life of me I can't find anything that should not be part of public disclosure on the matter. And it really concerns me because we have a right here to exclude the public in certain quite limited situations, and I'm really concerned that we use that opportunity to exclude the public from a matter that they're extremely interested in far too often. And everyone knows that there's going to be an extension of time here, and everyone knows what this is about, which is asking for an approval of an appropriate amount of money to manage that extension of time. All we're doing by not allowing the public to hear the discussion is adding to their current levels of distrust and suspicion about the whole process that we're going through here, and I don't really want to be part of that. But the only instance that the chair of HBRIC has given us that could justify public exclusion, which is in relation to the arrangements with a financial advisor, that financial advisor is not even mentioned by name in the paper that we've got. So for the life of me, I just can't find a justification for going into public exclusion on this matter, so I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you. Councillor Belford.
Just in support of what Councillor Bevan has said, I too just don't see the rationale for any of this being in public excluded. We're going to be asked to make a commitment of substantial amount of money. We have an assurance from the Chief Executive that some kind of document might potentially be produced that adequately makes the case for taking such an action. In my judgment, that case isn't made here. And so I'm not prepared to delegate in that regard a judgment as to what deserves to be in public and what doesn't deserve to be in public after a decision has been made on the matter. It also doesn't speak to if there are subsidiary decisions we make along the way in the discussion today, are any votes taken on those matters to be made public? Is the position of councillors on the final recommendations in this document to be made public? All of that is up in the air at this point, and to vote to simply go into public excluded leaves that all vague, untested, and basically subject to the arbitrariness of the staff, as I just heard the last response.